G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute and I can actually pronounce words for a change. This is like the second take, sorry. But yeah, so today we're going to be doing military ships suck, changed my mind. And I've got two military guys here. I've got, well, a Navy personnel, drinkers with gaming problems, and a person from our community that is SA. SA, since you're the new person here, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, currently in the Army Reserves. I've experienced in multi-domain and joint operations, including some ops and planning.
Excellent. All right, so before we get started, we've got hashtag Jaden in the comments if you are interested in winning an F7A upgrade and a Super Hornet. Fortunately, Eric, Jaden Lanza passed away, and his friend's looking for a new ship, a new home for his former owner's ship. And yeah, fortunately, he's passed away, and yeah, you know the story. All right, so boys, changed my mind. We went through a few ships, and you've made a little list here. So the first ones off the rank are single-player military ships. Now, I will do the caveat, these are not budget-related choices. These are just purely choices based on what these guys thought were best. And they are in, I believe it's descending order. So the worst one is the Eclipse, and the best one is the Sabre. So, who wants to kick it off? Oh, I moved the wrong thing. Of course I did. Who wants to kick it off with the Eclipse? I believe it was you, Badger, yeah?
Yeah, I put the Eclipse up. And it's purely from the perspective of kind of gameplay. As you said, we're not talking about stuff in terms of money or what's useful to buy, because I believe the ship is very expensive for what it does. But I do like the idea from a gameplay perspective of groups of friends in these things being able to take on much larger targets. And it's in the military, they frame it, they deem it something called asymmetric warfare. Now, this isn't it in the truest sense, but it's the idea that it's not, you know, let's put it in World War II terms, it's not battleship against battleship, it's not, you know, cruiser against cruiser. Asymmetric is a very, very different threat requiring a very different response, and I like that the Eclipse gives that gameplay, and of course that you can do that on your own without having to have people with you as well.
Yeah, okay, I can get that. SA, anything you would like to say in regards to the Eclipse before I destroy this?
I'm not a personal fan of the Eclipse. I think the cockpit's amazing, but it does have a very unique gameplay aspect. And I think the one thing we don't know about it yet is when bombs or smart bombs come in, will it be able to potentially lay those down on targets on ground? And if that's the case, and it can do it from high altitude, it's going to be invaluable for an org to basically soften up a target.
So you're talking about laser targeted bombs, essentially. So someone paints it, yeah. I think
I like that idea of. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I think that we don't know enough yet about the mechanics, but laser guided or just being smart, it's going to, when you're going to take any target, you're going to soften it. And that's one you can do from a high altitude distance and low risk.
I think what the Eclipse does probably have going for it is when it's one of those ships that can come off the Idris. So it actually can be still be a carrier-based bomber. It's obviously not as carrier-based as something like a Gladiator, but it's got bigger bombs than a Gladiator, so, you know, it does more damage. So, you know, bigger obviously is harder to get out to where it needs to go. Value proposition-wise, right? Because that's where I come from, and, you know, that's kind of one of the fundamentals of Inforunners. This ship is terrible. Absolutely terrible. And there's another ship that I will mention later on that I'll come back to where you can almost get two of them for the price of this ship. And it's a ship in its field. So that'll come back around, and I'm sure one of you guys will remind me at the time. But yeah, I can't get behind the Eclipse just because it's just so expensive for what it is. And I think the only ship that's probably worse than it price-wise is the very next one on the list.
Yeah, and you know the Eclipse is one of those things. It's rule of cool, right? Everyone wants a stealth bomber
100%.
or a stealth fighter, and that's why that is from what I can see, the sole reason behind its pricing. And I like the idea of putting it on an Idris or something like that. But I think as well, something to bear in mind is once you go into combined arms like that, the space that those torpedoes are going to take up, that Idris is not going to have the capability to do a lot else, because once you start taking up its ammunition space with size 9 torpedoes, if you've got something else that, say, relies on missile or hard rounds, you are giving over an awful lot of space to one craft. So it'll be interesting to see how they work that out logistically.
Yeah. I think you kind of hit on the nail on the head here on something as like just a general topic across the board. Most military ships are overpriced, and that's why I think a lot of them do suck on a value proposition basis. But yeah. All right, let's move on to the... Oh, nope, I'm moving the wrong thing again. Typical me. Move on to the Aries, please. You want to take this one first, I say?
Sure. The only thing I'd really say about it is Bert. Like, it's the A10, right? It's an amazing support craft, especially with the talk out. I think people can now see where its value is. It has the ability to operate in space, but if you take it on ground and you want to soften up again a ground target or take out a ground target, it's a single pilot with a single asset. It's a safe gamble for an org to run. Probably its greatest strength to me is not the single weapon component of it. It's that these ships, when we look at how they're going to attack, it is a straight line run ship. That's why it's center line, and it just makes it simple to use. So if you're going to take out tanks, this is probably your go-to.
Okay. Drinkers?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I must admit, again, going back to the space issue, I kind of tend to favor the Ion on this, purely because you don't need to take up space with massive amounts of ammunition if you're using it offensively. Defensively, or if you've got the space, if you've got something that just doesn't care about what ammo you're taking, then yeah, the Inferno looks like a lot of fun, and I too support the Bert.
Yeah, for me, I think, believe it or not, when I first started out talking about the Aries back when we did the buyer's guide for this, I was really behind the Iron as well. But as time's gone on, I think the stronger in its position and role is the Inferno, because you are going to be against those ground targets, and if they don't have fighters with them, you've got the air superiority thing going for you. Now, I don't know if you guys agree with me on that, but that's just how I feel. And I think the Inferno is the stronger of the two Aries, but that's just me.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the Super Hornet. Drinkers, change my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I have kind of a not an issue. I'm looking forward to seeing all of the Hornets updated. But the Super Hornet, I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not we get the value out of that second seat in it, because you're not uprating the armor. It's not going to be massively tanky over anything else in its class. And I suppose this kind of goes for the Hurricane as well. It's whether or not those seats get the value. And it's really good to see that they've improved the turret gameplay, because that makes the whole turret gunning thing easier. But yeah, I must admit, if it came between a normal Hornet and the Super Hornet, I'm not sure which way I'd lean. But I think SA's got a better kind of take on it than I have.
Well, just before we go on SA, then we also don't have armor in game yet, and I think we all can say the Super Hornet's definitely got that armor, or the F7 series in general, have armor going for them. So I think that we're not at that level where we can literally assess it 100%. SA.
So the Super Hornet is it's one of those ships where I want it to be more than it is now. And I don't see the value in it today. I see the value in it in the future. Not just design, but just that functionality of having that second seat. The example I'd give you is I think the tracker's useless, because there's no way that a pilot is going to be monitoring, searching through radar, monitoring comms while they're in air, and flying. So to me, I can take that radar suite off of the tracker, put it on the Super Hornet, and then all of a sudden you have a well-armored well-positioned, slightly, good offensive capability vessel out there that's feeding real-time information on current operations.
It's definitely one of those ships that has not stood the test of time, that the tracker. And that tracker has been there since like almost day dot of this whole game. So yeah, I 100% agree with your statement.
Yeah. The benefits of that, the tracker, is that it hides in plain sight. So, from a distance, trying to discern that in the middle of a dogfight from all of the other Hornets you've got flying around, if you've got a pretty accomplished pilot who's able to stay close enough that they don't look like they're staying back and yet keeping themselves out of trouble pretty much, then yeah, you've got a decent capability hidden in a group of Hornets that is going to be an absolute nightmare to pick out.
I also think the tracker itself is more like passing information back to a command and control ship, just so it has enemy readings and stuff, so they can kind of tell them what to go for and stuff like that. I think it's not so much directly like, I get where SA's coming from, and I do agree with him. 2 seats is still better than 1, and I still think the Super Hornet is the better option, but I can see why you could possibly do it as a single seater as well, but nowhere near as effectively as what SA said.
Yeah. It's almost from the advert of the Terrapin. You go and land it on an asteroid or sit right up against an asteroid and take the flying part completely out of it and just concern yourself with the scanners, and almost it gives a group of fighters, it doesn't have to be Hornets, it gives a group of fighters far more situational awareness than they would otherwise have, as long as as you say that, as long as the pilot's actually got the capacity to be doing that along with flying and everything else.
Yeah, agree.
Buccaneer. Now, I'm going to start this one off. I actually really love flying this ship. There's just something about it, like it reminds me of flying a Star Wars space junk ship. I don't know what it is. There's just something I like about it. I actually backed this ship at concept when it first came out, and I loved the whole way it kind of hung off the wings, and then they changed it, and the landing gear all moved, and it just ruined, because the gun on the bottom thing is what had me. It reminded me of one of the raves from StarCraft, if you've ever played StarCraft, and I loved it. And then they changed it, as they do with, I've backed a lot of Drake ships, and I got rid of most of them, all because of the asymmetry. So you can guess the only one I've kept is the Caterpillar. So I was really into the asymmetry. So I'm a sucker for asymmetry. So yeah. Drinkers, your thoughts on the Buccaneer? And I know you added this one on the list, so yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a Marmite ship, right? You either really like it or you really don't, in my experience. I'm on the I'm not a fan side of things. But I can see the utility in it. And, I like the background of, these are not top-of-the-line military ships. These are cheap things you can get out to militias that are really easy to run. And I think that's kind of the aspect that will transfer what's in the lore into game, is you've got a military starfighter, you've got the Super Hornet. Fixing that thing should be an absolute, pain in the backside. Whereas, the Buccaneer should be, right, get the duct tape out, I can fix this, done, let's get back in the fight, sort of thing. So, yeah, I would like to see them do a lot of that with it. But, yeah, it wouldn't be my go-to flyer, put it that way.
All I got out of that is I don't like Marmite, and I prefer Promite. And Australians prefer Vegemite. Sorry, yeah. Anyway, no, everything you said was correct. Sorry, I'm just giving you shit. All right, SA, your takeaway on your favorite toast spread? No, on the Buccaneer.
Yeah. So what I would say, the Buck is an acquired taste. You either like it or you don't like it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think anything, Invictus is an opportunity to go rent it and experience a different type of ship than any other fighter that you currently can fly, or buy, I should say.
That's 100% correct. That's a thing we should have said, like, right at the start. If you don't, this is the time to try. You can try everything in the game almost. 100%. Try before you buy. Can't agree with that more. And yeah, try all the fighters and get the one that you really like. That's entirely up to you. We do a lot of value proposition or bang for buck on this show, but if you really like it, we ain't going to stop you. You know, we're just trying to get you that the best value proposition. All right. So with bounty hunting coming up, what did I say? Bounty hunting coming up. We've got the Hawk. I think this is a really interesting ship to fly. It's got some really cool, not just a weird look about it, but like I just like the way it moves. It's got a little bit of everything in it as well, like the EMP, a bit of combat, a bit of missiles. Like it's got a bit of cross pollination going on.
Yep. I have this for 3 reasons. The first being that I can lock my friends in the pod and they don't get to get out until I let them out. The second being, and literally this was the deciding factor. So what you were just saying there, X, about it's about the ships that you feel, not necessarily the bang for your buck. The bit in the trailer for the Hawk where it collapses down and lands in the middle of the street, seeing that, I knew I was going to get it. It's that ability to just kind of completely collapse. And I love the animations as well. But what I really appreciate about the Hawk, the third thing, is that it gives you an option other than shoot it till it stops working as a fighter.
Disable,
you know, so you're not going to be
neutralize. Disable or neutralize, is what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly that. You know, you're probably not going to be the lead ship in the attack, but what you will do is once you know the shields are down or you can get an angle, you're just going to come in, pop that EMP, and now that ship is as pristine as it can be.
Yeah.
Now you've got the shields down, and it gives you a whole bunch of other options. And I just like the fact that there is a very small, very nimble, terrifying ship that can hide in places most ships can't. And it has the ability to just completely throw you out by knocking your shields down, disabling your ship.
This might be a good time to mention before SA responds. Also, if you want to try out a ship, you can always have an exit strategy. Like, for example, say you want to buy an MSR, there is no reason you can't say, get the Hawk and CCU chain all the way up to the MSR, and you can experience those ships all the way along. There's, you know, so you can keep trying before you buy, essentially. And not only that, if you've seen our episodes on CCU chaining, you can save a bunch as well as you do so. So, you know, another good reason to try it. SA,
and,
your
you know,
thoughts...
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
One of the things that I did was I ended up picking up a ship, the Gladius, that I wasn't happy with. And that has now become one of the talents. But that money, I just effectively played with it. And every couple of days, I was changing that around. So it's not a case for us as backers. You don't have to go, oh, I want to try all these ships, therefore I need to add the cost of that to the cost of that to the cost of that. No, just buy one thing and then just change it over so often. It will take a little bit of research. You've got to understand what's available all the time versus what's available at special events, and kind of guess when they're going to happen. But that's a really good way of doing it. You don't have to spend loads of money to try every ship.
We're getting a little bit off topic here, but back in the day, I used to have a Super Hornet and a Gladiator with $0 CCUs, and I had like 20 of each, and it's like having 2 ships. I would just apply it whenever I wanted to. You can't do that anymore. But anyway, SA, your thoughts on the Hawk? Sorry to hold you up for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, no worries. Just real quick, if you could see my finger, it'd be pointing up. If you have a question about CCU chaining, this community, you know, the Inforunners Discord is a great place to come and ask questions about it. It's a very helpful place. It's a confusing topic. Okay, I don't want to get too off topic, but I just felt like that had to be said.
No. There's heaps of people in there, man. It's not just anymore. It's actually been kind of helpful because they tend to just to pass on the more complicated ones to us when we do shows. But if you've just got a little question, it's alleviated all the messages I get. You know, I used to get like, it'll come up to sales time and I'll just get heaps. And now I still get heaps, but just nowhere near as what I used to get. And none of the little small questions, because people feel they can go there and ask them without, you know, burdening algorithm myself or one of the other Inforunners. So it's really good to have that there. And you also get multiple opinions. I'm not the be-all and end-all of this, either is Algorithm, you know? Like, that's just our opinion. And we have people that come around and challenge our opinion quite frequently. It happened tonight. There was a guy talking about, the MSR versus the Retaliator? And that was quite a heated little debate that we had. But yeah, I digress. Your thoughts on the Hawk?
With the Hawk, what I would say is it's kind of hard for me because I like the way that it performs. I guess I'd say this: rent it, try it. Like, would I personally buy it? No, but if you want, it's like the Car2 wall. It's a unique experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just a unique experience.
I think that's what I like about it. It is different to fly. People had heard me say this about the Caterpillar before. How it's at the back and it's awesome. It's just a different experience. It's got this something about the way it moves is just really interesting. I can't really describe it. All right, SA. Since we took so long, Sabre. What are your thoughts?
I put the Sabre on the list, and the reason I did is if you're looking at a fighter that you can't buy every day, that just comes around, it's one of the superior fighters in the game. It has a decent flight model, a great cross section, and I think
bit of stealth
it's not.
Too.
Yeah, it has that capacity. If anything, it's worth a look at. If you just, even like I said, I keep saying this over and over again, but rent it, fly it, experience a new flight model. And if you like it, and again, you have that CCU chain planned out, you can get out of it. Why not? Fly it around the verse and enjoy it.
Yeah. I have to agree. A lot of people I know that don't have a lot of ships, it is a ship that they own. And I'd have to double check with the gentleman, but I believe Nubify, it's one of the 2 ships that he owns. So, high praise. Your thoughts, Strenkers?
Yeah, I love the feel of it. It feels badass getting into that thing, and it's so effective. From someone who's come from light fighters like the Gladius, the Arrow, the Hawk, it is just so much more survivable. And if people are looking at a durable option for getting into some real brawls, the Sabre would be my go-to, certainly.
All right, so that was the single military ships. These guys thought it was really important to go through those. So for people that are into that single stuff, and now we're going to move on more to the multi-crew stuff, which is stuff that I'd more likely recommend. Now, if you're looking value proposition, I think these 2 gents would agree with me. None of these ships are worth buying. But if you really, really like them, don't let us stop you. In my personal opinion, a lot of these ships are good to try. They'll be very easy to get in game, especially if you have a ship that's larger. So you can take one of the larger ships, maybe even one of the ones that we're going to mention, and very quickly, within a couple of missions, you can earn one of these ships. Right. So let's move on to the multi-crew ones. And I'm going to move the red circle as well. So I believe the Idris, if I'm not mistaken, was USA that put this one in. So take it away.
I have a long history with the Idris. I owned it and I melted it. And basically, when it grew, I didn't want to forget. The crew requirements to me just got too high.
Yeah.
Ended up getting a Polaris. Happy where I'm at. But I was doing a conceptual thing with another person doing it for execute, as far as what we're looking at, looking at the capabilities of ships within operations.
Just give away all our upcoming episodes. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
But what became really apparent is there's a big gap in the ships. In command and control is that gap. And what I quickly realized is that the Idris itself, in space, not necessarily doesn't necessarily stand out, but landed for land operations, it really does stand out. You have the ability to bring not necessarily fighters. You can fill the bay with tanks, ballistas, whatever vehicles you want, support vehicles. It has excellent cargo for its size, and command and control, medical facilities, brig, all the things you'd need to run an actual large ground operation. And it is, I guess the Kraken is the largest ship you can bring to surface, but it is the largest ship of these capabilities that you can bring to surface. So in space, I don't see it standing out, but on landed, I see it being a standout.
I think also one of the most underrated things that people don't take into account is that this is the main ship in Squadron 42. Is going to be the most polished thing I think you're ever going to see in the game, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And no one saw me drop that on the floor, right? 10-second rule. It's all good. Yeah. Um, your thoughts on the Idris, please. Drink.
Yeah, for me, the Idris is the first real step into almost org-only ships. Or, if it's not an org, it needs a group of people to support it. I mean, your minimum crew is, what, 8 on this thing? You know, it's not, in and of itself, it's not going to be the most versatile platform. What it is what it brings to the party, as ESE was saying. But, you know, this is something that, and I'm going to embarrass myself here by saying I'm not sure if this is one of the ships we're going to be able to store or not, or whether it's going to be one of the ones that needs to stay permanently in the verse. But that means you're probably going to need to have a few people on it at all times. So this isn't something we take out and fly ourselves. And if people are looking at that ship, they need to understand that this is not, you know, someone's going to be flying your very expensive baby when you're not online.
Like those larger ships, you know, that can't be parked away, they literally mean that they're an org ship. You've got to have someone on almost 24/7 to look after it, you know. And where do you hide it? Where, you know, do you keep it landed on a planet at a city so it can't be attacked? Like, that might just be this way, but then you got to pay rental fees, or, you know, the costs build up. So yeah, there are things that we haven't yet ascertained. That's for sure.
Yeah. You know, there may well be the option to dry dock, and we're just going into the realms of the maybe now. It's going to be incredibly versatile for what it does. It's powerful. It has, you know, enough crew that you'll be able to support fighters and stuff on board. You've got the space for it. As ESE is saying, you can turn it into a fob for ground operations. It can do both. You know, it's going to be incredibly versatile and it's going to be a real shift away for gameplay. Because I can't think of anything. Maybe the stations in EVE is something that you can lose as an organization when you're not online and you're nowhere near any of that sort of stuff. But as a mobile platform, as something you own as a player, I can't think of anything like that exists. And it's going to be a real mindset shift. Sorry, swearing on stream. For players as how they run these things. And I would, you know, I'm going to wait to see. I would love to get into this because obviously this is what I did in the real world, or as close as you can get to it is beyond frigates and destroyers at sea, everything up to carriers, in fact. But I'm going to be very interested to see how that works in reality.
I want to see how many tonks we can fit on this thing, because there's nothing to say you couldn't use it as a tonk carrier. Like it looked like a lot. Like why do you need Hercules when you can literally take this down and, you know, take the whole fleet with you?
If anyone wants to have an idea of how that's going to work, if you can get a Gladius and put it near a tonk and get the size idea, and then go and watch the vertical slice where they're on the landing bay and you've got the guys doing all the cool hand gestures and all that sort of stuff, you'll be able to get a really good idea as to how many things you can fit on that flight deck.
Yeah. All right. Polar Medivac. Now, this was put forward by one of our other supporters, and then you also picked it up, ESE. So I think I'll let you start on this one too, man.
I mean, it's kind of along the lines of the Idris. It's, you know, if you are doing ground operations, you need medical capability, and the Idris definitely has it. But if you don't have an Idris, let's say you're using a Carrick as a command and control, you know, it has medical facilities, but they're limited. So, you know, having the ability to be able to treat and to, you know, quote unquote, respawn your people on the ground and deal with serious wounds so they don't have to actually tap out. It's going to be very valuable. You know, for now, like, are there other gameplay loops for it? Yes. So it's one of those ships that, is it a true military ship? No, it's a multi-purpose ship. It's involved in SARs, it's involved in military operations, and it's involved just day-to-day gameplay. So it does have the ability to potentially earn money, you know, from day one.
Look, after doing the search and rescue episode with Drinkers and Osiris, I think these ships could be worth their weight in damn gold. The amount that you could charge people in particular battlefields that need to get themselves back into the game, make a killing. Yeah, so I really think they're undervalued. Drinkers, your thoughts?
I'm a massive fan of both of the Apollos. and certainly for operations on the ground that we were talking about a couple of days ago in a chat. I am massively against the idea of everything being in one ship.
Yeah.
Because all your eggs in one basket, right? So I would much rather have those things separated out. A, they're smaller targets, and B, just, as he's already said it, the Apollo is so versatile with the amount and the quality of the beds that you have in, and those drones, being able to send drones to recover people as opposed to actual people. Now you don't have to have people just sat there waiting to find out when I can go and do anything useful. I can't go and contribute because I'm waiting for casualties to start to develop. You don't need that. You've got drones. And the medevac, specifically from a military perspective, I think lends itself more to the military because it has that missile rack. It's able to go in and give light fighters we could come here and pick through the debris and try and find all the pilots that are hiding from us that have ejected. The medevac turns up, they've got a serious decision whether or not they hang around or become casualties themselves to that thing's missiles and weapons.
They've even talked about on the Orion having missiles for. So you know how you have the blast charges with the Vulture, and you go out and you place the blasters. They've talked about missiles that you can fire off the Orion that crack up the rocks. What if they had missiles like that on the Apollo that could crack up like a broken whatever to get into the people to get them out? Is what I'm trying to allude to. That could be something that we also see on Apollo down the road. Just a thought. All right, Nautilus. Who wants to crack at this one?
The Nautilus it's one of those ships, again, when it was concepted, I had no interest in it. I looked at it, it had kind of a cool look to it, but
same.
Laying mines, what kind of gameplay loop is that? All you're doing is one thing. But the episode about mining, for example, when we're talking asteroid mining, how are you going to secure those asteroid fields, those claims? And all of a sudden I started seeing those gameplay loops. Does it have a military purpose? Absolutely. It can defend, you're going to need an orbital entry. You're going to have to secure an area where your ships, like an OM marker, can actually enter into an atmosphere for ground operations. Do you want to leave a player there? No, they're going to be bored to tears. Lay mines. You're not in current military operations. Want to make some extra money? Take your Nautilus, hire yourself out as a mine layer for a mining crew. And I'm sure there are other options out there that I haven't even considered. You want to be a pirate? Lay mines in the middle of a trade line. So it has just a lot of versatility, a lot more. And really, in that tier of ships, I think the Polaris stands out. But the Nautilus, to me, is in there as well as being not overpriced for what it performs or what it gives.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting about it is the idea of mines isn't just the kind of floating ball with sticks out that hopefully someone will bump into. It's the mines will go after people, and B, that mines can also be in place floating sentries with weapons. And effectively you're becoming sentry drones. What I also like, because it's a fascinating area of warfare if you go into it, is the psyops or the psychological operations aspect of the Nautilus. Is you don't need to lay a damn thing, you just need to be seen. And now, right, you don't need to push anything. Could be empty. Go in empty. People I've scanned it. It's got no explosives on it. It must have laid stuff. And now everyone's panicking about it's like, well, you got to be careful where you send the fighters. You can't send them into that asteroid field because if they've laid mines in there, we're going to lose our fighters. And all you've done is rock up with an empty Nautilus. It's got a bunch of stuff for other things. So yeah, I quite like the screwing with your opponent's head a bit with that ship.
No, definitely. I like it. Well, I like any that way you can stuff people's heads. All right, the Carrick. SA. The Carrick, you were the one that put this on the list. What are your thoughts behind that?
Bottom line, the Carrick is one of the best ships in the game right now.
No,
it just has. It's if you've never flown it, first of all, let me just say this on all these ships. The ones that exist, fly them, rent them. This is your chance. The Carrick is definitely one. If you think you're a good fighter pilot, try to fly either the Reclaimer or the Carrick. Good luck. It's a completely different experience. Now, the Carrick, why is it on this list for me? And actually, it probably should be higher. Simply put, it's it has all the gameplay versatility, everything that everybody knows, cargo, scanning. But in addition to that, in military operations, this is your command and control ship on the ground. If you're just bringing a company-size element and you need a command center, what we call TOC, this is going to be that center. And having that, does it have a ton of medical capability? No. But hopefully you're not dealing with a lot of medical issues at one time. So it may even be able to provide those roles. And, just carrying vehicles, having a scout ship. It just has a lot of versatility in gameplay.
We've even heard about the modules being able to carry a ballista, and that makes it the same category as the tonk. So essentially, you could carry a tonk in the modules. That's the last we've heard on the modules, but we don't even know what other modules it's going to have. So the versatility of this ship is still yet to be fully the full size of it is still yet to be seen, which is crazy considering how much it already has. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on the Carrick?
Just to break character from the military thing for a second, if you're a player who's looking in what is the big fuss about multi-crew ships, the Carrick has the whole package, right? You've got the medical facility on board to play with. You can put a ground vehicle in it, go land somewhere, drive around in your ground vehicle. You've got the hangar bay on the top to put something small in and go and fly around. So if you are trying to understand what this game has to offer, why it is different, and why so many people work themselves up into such a frothing frenzy about it one way or the other, the Carrick is the ship to go and fly. Plus, you feel like an absolute badass flying it around. I think the reason for me why the Carrick just sits so far down on the list is because everyone is recommending it. You don't need to come onto something with with people as specialized as a developer, military personnel to hear that the Carrick's a great ship. Yeah. I kind of wanted to talk.
I was just going to say it's definitely a ship that a lot of people own, so it's going to be quite common in the game. So I can see why it's one of those ships that so many people have that you're often questioning, is it worthwhile getting another one because so many people already own it. So I do see where you're going there. Mm-hmm. All right, the Vulcan. Which one of you lads added this one?
That was my baby, but I think Essa and I are both going to wax lyrical about this one.
This is the one you'll have to change my mind on this one, so good luck. Go ahead.
Sure. So the Vulcan was a ship I didn't look twice at. It was coming out, and it is refuel, repair, rearm. Great. But we don't see those mechanics in game at the moment. Even if we did, we've only got Stanton. So it's not like you're out in the deep void and you're looking for someone to help you. Just stop off at a rest stop. It's easy enough. But now, looking at the tonk gameplay, you can put one of these in a group of tonks, with a couple of Hercules, and it does everything. Tonks are going to have a limited range, like all things are, but they're going to be on the ground. They move so much slower. And the Vulcan just goes to them, and it fills them back full of hard rounds. It repairs whatever damage they have, as well as the attending vessels. And off they go again. And it just keeps doing that.
How do they get refueled, though, to do that? How do they, as in, like, where do they go? Because they've only got 12 SCU of cargo. How do they...
Let me jump on that one. So we're kind of ruining a future episode, as you love to do. So the idea of a Vulcan is you're never going to see them operating in ground operations alone. You're going to have a forward operating position. Right.
So there's other ships, in short, that are going to do that too.
Yeah, you're not.
That's all you need to say.
Starfarer.
Yep.
Starfarer, you fill the Starfarer up with ammunition. Not tactically sound, but let's face it, players are going to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. And then you have your fuel, your ammo, and a slight bit of repair. And the Vulcan acts as the go-between in between that Starfarer and and that line of effort.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. What other ship puts you in a position where it can do all three?
So essentially, you're saying that the Vulcan is more of a moving ground vehicle based thing. So it's not like the RSAT or the roadside assist vehicle that we've been looking at. It could also literally be a roadside assist vehicle for tanks.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
I think for everything, I think at the moment it's become so obvious with the tonks. And that's what's caused me to look twice at it. Because, you know, Stanton, it's not big enough to worry about fuel. As a, you know, you can just bunny hop around the system. What happens when we get Pyro? Pyro has very few fuel stops in it. You don't want to go to Ruin Station. What are your options as someone with a fighter to quantum around Pyro and yet have enough fuel then to come back through the jump point and reach a fuel stop within Stanton?
All right. Well, I'm gonna ask a question then, and I'm actually gonna jump ahead here by one. Why wouldn't you just use the Crucible then? Like, because you can literally bring the tanks down with the Crucible. And I think the only my brain's ticking it over is it just doesn't move as well because it's got to land to kind of pick up the tanks and stuff. But it's also got drones, and I guess it's a bigger, easier to hit target. Sorry, go ahead.
It's such a I wish I could show you an image that I built along with Kelby, but the idea of the Crucible was, will it be there? Yes, but it's going to be a battalion level asset. It's going to be where, you know, at that core base, you're going to have a Starfarer, you're going to have an SRV, you're going to have a Crucible, and if a tank gets damaged badly enough, you're going to run that SRV out to pick it up, bring it back to the Crucible, and then it'll be repaired and refit. The Vulcan is that ship you send forward, so you're not risking your Starfarer, you're not risking your Crucible. And because those are valuable to the lines of effort.
Yeah. I was just going to say, do know the Crucible has a tractor beam on it, and it could literally pick up the tank?
Yes, but do you want to risk that? Do you want to actually bring...
True.
The only thing that the Crucible is lacking is racks for fireworks to visually indicate its location. Because it has everything else, right? Because it's going to be switched on to be useful.
Yeah.
So the power signature that this thing's kicking out, even if it's landed, it's just, you might as well put a finger in the sky. We're here. This is where all the important stuff is. Because now you're dragging in, you've got your ballistas to defend it.
Yeah.
You're only got a couple of ballistas.
So it's not just the Crucible. It's not just the Crucible that's got to move. You got to take stuff with it to cover it, where the Vulcan's a bit more expendable. Is that the short version? Yeah, okay, right, okay.
And the Vulcan is something you can hide. The Vulcan is not something that attracts its attention, right? You think of, again, I use the example of the Falklands. The carriers are way the hell back there. And then you've got the landing ship slightly forward of that. And then you've got the fleet forward of that, the main fighting assets. And it's that keeping things out of harm's way. The easiest way to stop your HQ being hit is to put it out of striking range, right? The Vulcan allows you to do that, and it also, because it's a smaller unit, it's much harder to detect when it is there. And again, keep it out of harm's way by preventing people seeing it.
Okay, so you've definitely increased the value in my mind, but I don't think it's still worth buying because of its price point, right? For me, if you can, that's all you can afford. Awesome. But if you've instantly, like, for example, if I had a Crucible, I would use the Crucible to earn the Vulcan.
What is the price of the Vulcan nowadays? I haven't looked.
Oh, someone's got some.
Sorry to be a pain.
The Crucible is 350 and the Vulcan is 220 currently. So essentially you could almost get 2 Vulcans cost more than a Crucible, but yet 2 Vulcans are not as good as a Crucible. Sorry about the noise there in the background. I think SA's got a gardener outside doing some work. So he's probably nicked off to tell him off. All right, so this one that I added to the list, which is a Kraken, but I assume you guys back this one as well. So, your thoughts on the Kraken there, drinkers?
Yeah, the Kraken's really interesting because it gives us the option for... it's an area of gameplay we haven't experienced because we only have Stanton. But one of the things that's going to come up with a future ship that's further down the list is, well, yeah, but fighters just end that ship's usefulness. And the answer that I have to that is, right, where are your fighters coming from? Because we know that most of the fighters can't get from one end of Stanton to the other on their quantum fuel.
Yeah.
And obviously, you're not always going to be fighting in the same system. Some of the people you're going to be fighting against and conducting order operations against are 3-4 systems away. How are you delivering them to the point? And, the Kraken's the first stab it looks like we're going to get of that. And that makes them kind of really, really important. I mean, this is for a lot of orgs, this is going to be flagship level vessel, right? So yeah, I'm really interested to see where they go with it. I'm not going to talk about the privateer because shopping's not really my thing. But yeah, the Kraken itself is going to be a really interesting stab, and it's going to force that mentality shift, because a lot of people just go, well, yeah, but it's fighting and it's one-on-one. It's not going to be that simple when we have more systems in the game.
Yeah, and I totally agree, and it's really hard to kind of predict just all the different versatility of the ships that you can bring to bear, just because it can then extend their reach and stuff like
Absolutely.
that. SA, you there, man?
I am. Yeah, sorry
Cool.
about that, gents.
Your thoughts on the
Although I
Kraken?
gotta
Yeah,
say
it's all right. I have
My
not.
yard looks amazing.
I have not had as much background noise on this in probably 200 episodes, but that's fine. All right, so your thoughts on the Kraken?
The Kraken. Well, I think everything. I mean, Drinker's kind of nailed it with it. That is what it's going to be good at. The only thing I would add to that is, the versatility that it brings to just all ships. If you pick any ship, whether it's a commercial ship or a military ship, and you think, can I use this with a Kraken? There's some synergy there. Whether it's remote repair, even for example having a Kraken being involved in commerce, for example. So the idea would be that you would have a whole bunch of hull A's or B's based off of a Kraken going with a hull E. And all of a sudden, those containers need to go down to the planet's surface. They all take off. The crews go. They land it. So it just has a lot of versatility. There's a lot of opportunity for it.
It definitely gives more flexibility to so many different roles, like the cargo example that you gave as well. It essentially could turn itself into like a mini space station to allow a planet that doesn't have a space station to kind of temporarily have one, with little holes and bees skipping down to deliver stuff to the planet, and other ships such as a big hull series dropping them off or transferring them over to the Kraken, and then the Kraken on down to the planet. You get where I'm going with the whole thing there.
Yeah.
Setting up, then duplicate that over to something like a Pioneer and starting a new base, etc., etc. You can see very quickly how you can move this to almost every single profession in the game. All right.
So, it's probably worth mentioning on that as well that of this list, the only ship that we've mentioned that you will actually be able to use at Fleet Week is the Carrick so far. Everything else is concept only. So.
Yeah.
I don't normally do buying advice, but my advice would be don't bother until you've had a chance to fly it. Unless it's something you absolutely know that you want. They'll be available, but they are concepts only at this stage.
And if I can add to that,
go ahead.
Sure.
If anything, CCU, right? Next value dollar ship, put your money into that, especially if you have credit. It just kind of secures that place when that ship comes out, if you want it.
Yeah, so like to give an example, like the Crucible, one of the ones that we always recommend is just pick up a Gemini to a Crucible. The other one that we always recommend, though it's not on this list, is the Endeavor. Gemini to Endeavor, they cost $10, and you secure that price. So if it ever jumps and you change your mind, $10. Don't want it, melt it, get something else. All right. I think we kind of went over the Crucible enough. Unless you guys have got anything you want to add, we'll move on to the Javelin.
There's one thing that I wanted to add, which actually no, I think you brought it up, which is the Tonk.
Yep.
The ability for that to be able to repair them, but also potentially carry vehicles down to a surface.
Yep. I think that's got a lot of unrecognized potential that we'll have to see down the line. As more and more vehicles come online, it's going to kind of be like a little garage that you can land and just drive them in and out of. It'll be interesting. The Javelin. Trinkers, I think you're the one that did this one.
Yeah, this was my baby. Look, again, I've got to go back to what we said about the Idris. Is that this is a massive step change. This is not something you're going to be able to fly yourself. Minimum of 12 crew, according to this. And when we consider minimums with other ships haven't included turret guns. The turret guns are extra to all of that. So again, a massive investment for an org, a massive investment for a player. But I think, you know, if someone wanted to get a sense of where things are going with the scale, now that we've seen the first clips of the Bengal in game, to say to someone, the Javelin, 80 people will fit on that. Players, people potentially, if those numbers stay the same, that's the current plan. But yeah, massively capable ship, and again, it's kind of the main multi-purpose brawl, or, you know, it's just a brawler. This thing's designed to get in up close with other ships and dismantle them. So yeah, I really want to see it do that. I also kind of want to see one explode, but I probably shouldn't say that.
Also, how much this ship will actually maximize in value is crazy. It's the most expensive ship that a player can buy, but it's just going to be so much more harder to obtain in game.
Yeah.
To the point that what you're actually buying when you purchase this is just the hull. You've still got to go out and source all the components. So if you think about that, that's the only ship that you can purchase like that. So essentially, does that mean that this ship is like fully fledged with components double, triple? How much more extra value is that? So literally, they're only giving you the first step in the door in getting the hull. You know, and the hull is probably going to be one of the hardest things to find, because once you have the hull, then you got to go get the components. But
yeah, I'd be interested to know what SA thinks of this, but I think, and I don't know if you agree with me, SA, is that it's going to be a loss maker. You are not making money in this ship. It's going to be a money sink due to the amount of people, the fuel, the fact that it's going to be constantly in the game. You know, this is going to be something that orgs are going to need to funnel huge amounts of cash into all the time to keep it as a viable platform.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. I think it's you know, not just a money sink. I think it's a time sink. You're looking at having to have a commitment to maintaining that ship, and you know, my view of the Javelin is pretty straightforward. I would not have put the Javelin on this list, but I would have. Well, I do agree that if your org needs a Javelin and you know you're ready to commit to the money to it, you know, this is your opportunity, because none of these larger ships are going to get any cheaper. They're either going to stay the same price or they're going to go up in price. And there's also limited hulls. Now, that being said, I think there are going to be far too many of them. You know, too many have been purchased. You're just not going to be able to operate that many of these vessels. So I would highly encourage anyone looking at this, or an org that has too many, you know, think about those other ships below them that you can put that money into, the Crucibles. You know, even, you know, in my mind, even something like a Vulcan. I'm not saying go buy it with cash, but it may have more value to your org than the 5 Polaris is sitting in dry dock.
I know people that have literally purchased ships like the Javelin that they intend to sell off once the game goes live for credit, and then basically go buy all the ships that they want. I've literally heard people say that. So I don't know if that's a wise maneuver or something that you should be recommended, but I'm just saying it's something I've heard. So yeah. All right, Polaris. Now I put this on this list. To me, the Polaris is like a mini Kraken in a type of turn of phrase, where you can use it to defend something like a mining operation or whatever, and the ability to cycle through fighters, like landing fighters on the Kraken deck and repairing them and refueling them. You can do that with a Polaris. So, instead of having to roll out an entire fleet, you can take the Polaris, and as long as it's got the ammo and the, you know, enough refuel supplies and all that type of stuff, it can cycle fighters through one by one. And I think as a ship that can do that, the next biggest ship is literally the Kraken and the Idris. You know, and I can hear people going, "Oh, the 890 jump," but the 890 jump's only got 2 tiny landing pads, not a small. And so that essentially means a lot of the fighters are not meant to refuel in that thing. So it's a unique proposition to Polaris, unless you take something that's not a combat ship, like a Crucible. Your guys' thoughts on the Polaris?
All right, I'll give it a go first. I own a Polaris. I think it's an incredibly well-positioned ship. For all the reasons that you mentioned. Also, though, the main reason I own one is there's you know, you may have an org, and you may have even a sub org that's slightly, you know, a group of friends. But this is that ship that you can take out with like your closest mates, you know, five, six people, and you can operate it. And in larger operations, things like the future Xeno threats, you can get together with your friends and you can cause havoc. Do I see it being able to make a lot of money on the commercial side? In escort, yeah, certain things that it could be used for. But when it comes down to, the value of it to me, it's that my friends and I can get together, you'll have a good time.
I did forget to mention the intimidation factor with those torpedoes. I think that's something that's really important to mention. Badges.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, because one of the things for me in my head is trying to understand the difference between the Idris and the Polaris, right? They both have multiple turrets. They both have a similar sized crew. So I think the Polaris minimum is 6. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then a maximum of 14, so a lot smaller than the Idris. You've got the onboard repair refuel facilities for a single fighter. Up to what size? I'm not quite sure where that lands. But yeah, sorry, go on. Up to small.
It's just a small. Yep.
Yeah. But I think again, it's the versatility aspect of that, with the much reduced cost aspect from the Idris, and not just in terms of credits, in terms of the amount of people that you need online. The Polaris for a capital ship is going to be the easiest one to hide, or one of the easiest to hide, because it's not massive. And again, it's, I think SA's pretty much nailed it. It's one of those ones that for a lot of us, every so often breaking it out with a few friends, taking it around, and your friends can even kind of juggle fighters in there. One can be off doing something, another one comes in and repair, and as long as you end up in the right place, you can run potentially multiple fighters from it, and that should be quite good fun.
SA Starfarer Gemini.
All right. I adore this ship now. It was one of those ships that I had the original concept Starfarer. I got the upgrade to the Gemini, and then I melted them, because what happened to the Starfarer, as soon as the Quantanium nerf happened, I jumped off. Now, looking back at what it can do, and really listening to the Inforunners discuss, the versatility of that cargo, the Starfarer Gemini is going to be at every single operational, like FOB, forward operating base, in every single land operation you see. It is, and on top of that, it can carry cargo. Now, I was talking to someone else about this. Is there realism in this game? There is, to a degree, but there's not such a cost that you will not take certain risks. And you could see a Starfarer being loaded up with ammunition, which you normally wouldn't do in a military operation. And you could land at any location where there's a battle going on, and you're the most valuable ship at that landing zone. So when I look at that Starfarer now, I see a different ship than I did before.
Yeah. Again,
it's just so fugly.
It
like really is.
Giant green rusted bathtub. Yeah,
it's got a face like a bulldog chewing wasps.
Yeah. It's definitely a ship that suffers from it. It was designed as like a Counter-Strike flying level. And I have no doubt, in the interest of time, when they eventually get round to, how they've talked about not just reworking but re-releasing a newer version of ships, I think that this one will get a lot of fat trimmed off the edges, if you get what I mean. And we have done Can We Fix It episodes on this ship, but fundamentally it is a very versatile ship. Algrid talks about how it's got drop seats in the back. You can fit multiple vehicles in it, like you can fit the rocks in it, and you can literally see this thing landing and like 2 or 3 rocks coming out of it, mining the Quantanium and going back in. And Sears said that as much when I was with him recently. So it is a ship that I still think that full spectrum of what we're expecting it able to be do is not recognized, and it'll take a long time until we can see that. All right.
Yeah, and I think it's necessary from a perspective of, it's fugly, but I can see the utility in it, and it looks like, from the way they've been describing it, that it is going to be by far the most effective platform for generating its own fuel with the fuel scoops, and there just isn't a ship out there that will match it with the amount of fuel that it will carry. So this is your fleet tanker, effectively, that will then, this is where the Vulcans will get their fuel, this is where the Crucible will take its fuel. This will supply everything in the fleet. So it's going to be one of those niche kind of almost, if you want to put it in FPS terms, support classes. There will be relatively few people flying Starfarers, I would imagine, on a regular basis, but they're going to be extremely valuable, and it's going to be a nice little money-making niche, I should imagine, in-game.
It's essentially the chef for ships, isn't it? Anyway.
Yes.
Right. The Redeemer. Now, I have a really big bond with this ship, to the point where, you know how people were talking earlier about the single military ships? I have that bond with this ship. Now, a lot of the time I look at it and I think it is a little bit overpriced, but I just have a real bond with the next great starship. And I really loved that when it was on. I actually wanted the other ship to win, and believe it or not, that's really weird to say because everyone thinks I hate Origin, but I really loved the Boomslang when it was there. But the Redeemer is the one that won. I like the nutcrackers or pliers or whatever you want to call it. I do hope that they actually get some kind of really cool use for hovering or whatever. They probably won't. But yeah, I'm just kind of eager to see how this turns out. And recently we saw it in the PTU, and some of the things they're doing with it does look kind of interesting. Like it might actually tread on a bit of the Vanguard's turf. Redeemer, for you.
Yeah, for anyone that hasn't seen it, on YouTube, on Star Citizen's channel themselves, the next great starship, it takes you through the whole creation process. This was all the way back in 2014, but this is community created. It's now been reworked, so it's more of a CIG product than it was before. But I like this. For me, almost fits into the Spectre gunship role. You know, that kind of sitting on an angle, circling a target, and just raining death and destruction down on whatever it can see. Yeah, I'll be interested to see it in game. I think it's one of those things. I love the concept. I'm not as taken with it. I think I'm going to wait until I see it, you know, actually in the flesh and can fly it around, and will probably eat my words, I shall imagine. But yeah.
It's like a mini Hammerhead, but from what I saw very recently, I originally envisioned this as a 3-person ship. It looks like it's going to be 5-person, 2 remote turrets, 2 actual turrets, and the pilot, which is that's getting to high numbers for me. And I'd much rather like 1 remote turret and maybe 2 turrets, so 4 people I could probably stretch it to. But now, yeah, it's going to be a bit grayer. But I know SA is really in love with this ship, so I'll let him sell you guys on it. So go for it, SA.
Yeah, love is the wrong word. I think it's ugly. I'm on the same boat as you. I thought the Boomslang should have won, and yeah, let's not go open up that can of worms. You know, everything Execute said is dead on. That's pretty much my opinion of it. What I would add to it is, it's the pinnacle right now in providing Overwatch for land operations, where the turrets are located. You know, the number of them that are facing down, and the ability to have top cover with the turret on the top. There's just nothing that can even come close to it. Even if the crew requirements are 5, it's still extremely good value. Don't see.
It's the maneuverability and stuff, isn't it? Because the Hammerhead just can't maneuver quickly and stuff. Where the Redeemer is going to be able to get in there quickly, do what it needs to do, and get out. Where the Hammerhead's more like dawdly and cumbersome and large.
Well, the Hammerhead, we're talking Overwatch. You know, I was hoping this ship would have jump seats, only for the ability to have a team being able to be inserted into an area. But this is going to be that ship. It probably will not have that. But if you see these 2 things in the air, it's just going to be they're going to be circling, and they're going to be providing something for some type of ground operation. And it's going to be the most valuable ship in that operation because it is providing that cover.
Currently, the one in the PTU has 4 jump seats, but they're up the top in the middle of the craft. It's kind of interesting. But
I think those are the remote turrets, aren't they?
No, the 2 remote turrets are actually directly behind the pilot seat. It's got a very weird layout. I'm interested to analyze it a little bit more once we get a chance to look at it properly in Invictus.
Yeah, my issue that is, I think, looking at the kind of fleet aspect is, it is going to be almost exclusively that CAS role, right? That close air support, air to ground fire. When you start putting it into a fleet aspect, that is a lot of squishy, a lot of people in a ship that is only medium.
You do know it's the default ship that comes with the Javelin, right? You do know that, right? That actually, the
Yeah,
Javelin
absolutely.
comes with one. Yeah.
And I take issue with that. I don't think it should be. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea that it could be one of those things. If you're going to hop around, team of force operators, special forces style thing, appear out of nowhere, have the firepower to put the shock and awe down on people. Oh my god, where did that come from? And then your guys run in, absolutely. But like I say, that's a lot of people. It's that or it's 5 Sabres.
Mm.
I know which one I'd go for. I know which option I would go for. Because at the end of the day, it's still only medium. One well-placed hit from a Tonk, I would imagine, is going to wreck it.
Vanguard Sentinel.
Can I go first on this one? It wasn't my ship.
That was his. That's why I'm pointing at him.
Sure. No, by all means, I say please.
I'm sorry. I think I have a little bit of delay here, so I didn't see you point. Vanguard Sentinel. I own this ship. I love this ship. And the future of this ship is nothing but bright. E-War is undervalued. I think a lot of the civilian market really don't understand what it provides because why? Governments don't want you to understand what it provides. So when the gameplay starts being fleshed out, I think we're going to have not only a viable combat ship in this ship, but we're going to have something that provides jamming capabilities, monitoring capabilities, fake signal, intercepts, things that right now are not in the game, but are going to be invaluable to any large org. So Vanguard, hands down, and it's the only Vanguard, by the way, that I feel is worth buying in cash. The other ones, I would say, wait on those. Don't necessarily spend your money on a Harbinger. It doesn't hit quite as hard enough for the dollar. But with the Sentinel, it's in a sweet spot, and there really likely is not going to be another ship in that range.
You stole my thunder, you monster.
How dare you?
Exactly that. And this is the ship I think I'll use to beat people over the head and say, look, because it says medium fighter doesn't mean it has to get in and brawl. This is the departure from all ships must just get involved and start blowing each other to pieces. This is the ship that doesn't. It's the ship that spoofs. It's the ship that feeds your enemy misinformation or prevents them from getting information on where you are. Used effectively, these things will turn much smaller fleets into far more effective than the sum of their components, because if you don't know where they're coming from, you can't counter them. If you don't know what's in that fleet, you cannot counter it. And that's what they're going to provide. But yeah, curse USA, you monster.
I do remember way back when, and I'd have to go actually look into it, but I remember them talking about this and being able to spoof and make it look like it's an entire fleet flying along and stuff like that as well. So, yeah, there's I think as a whole, the only thing I really don't like about the Vanguard is those 4 fixed guns. So you have to have half gimbal to half fixed, or just move everything to fixed. And that lack of versatility in guns is just slightly annoying, and I just wish they would change their minds. I think they're being a little bit pig-headed there, forcing people to pick fixed over the versatility. I'm all for versatility. Let the player how they want to play. Let the player use the controls that they want to control, whether it's a joystick, or keyboard or mouse, whatever. And so I think for me, that's what really kind of kills that Vanguard is you are locked into something and you don't really get a choice, and that's what detracts so much. But as SA said, that is the best of the Vanguards by no question.
Yeah.
All right.
No, absolutely. And I think for me with the Vanguard specifically, and I hear what you're saying about the others, but with the Sentinel, specifically is, if you're fighting in a Sentinel, you're doing it wrong.
Yep. All right. I've talked about this ship to no end. SA is a converted soul, so I'll let him sell you on the base retaliator.
The tally. So I brought this up as the bomber being superior to the base and execute quickly, picked up a stick and beat me over the head with it repeatedly. And eventually, basically I've been educated on this one. The value that this ship brings is huge. For the price point that it's at, it's just a no-brainer. the modularity of the ship means that we're going to see a huge diversity in how the ship can be used. And we don't even know if we've seen all the modules. In fact, I'm almost absolutely sure we haven't. I think we're definitely going to see an E-War suite, you know, a module that can do E-War or monitoring. And there's a variety of other options, a med bay. There's so many things they could do for this ship.
Yeah.
Now, getting off all that, the Loner's a bomber, which is a ton of gameplay. And, you know, at the current day, and we are going to see the modules fairly soon, but not right away. And because of that future modularity, I don't like the look of the ship. But if you have this ship, you can't go wrong. You're going to have gameplay options.
To add to that, going way back to the start of this episode, remember I said there was another ship that correlates with the Eclipse? This is it. Literally, for only $25 more, you can get 2 of the base Retaliator to the price of 1 Eclipse. The bomber variant of the actual Retaliator, is the same price as the Eclipse. You could this is before they went up in price, by the way. So I think they're like $310 now or something like that. The point I'm trying to get at is you can get 2 base Retaliators for the same price as an Eclipse or a Retaliator bomber, which is just crazy. What no module is worth an entire ship, never. So and that's what I had to beat SA over the head with. Don't get the bomber variant, just get the base, because you can get 2 of them, you know, and earn the modules in game. This is like, seriously, if you want a daily driver and you do not have a lot of money, why would you get a prospector when you can get this? They're the same price. You know, there are fighters like a Super Hornet, like half the ones in that list there, that cost more than this. That's ridiculous. This is the, and I hate to use this term, poor man's daily driver. If you cannot afford, a $250 daily driver where most of them sit in that price bracket, get the base Retaliator and earn the modules in game. Like that is the way to go. Drinkers, your thoughts on the Retaliator base?
Yeah. So the base, I think between you and Essa, you've covered pretty much the base. All I will say is, and I will go back to the bomber, is from the military perspective, is I absolutely love the feel of the World War II Memphis Belle, crawling around inside it. You're crawling over and under and around the ordnance. That just, it captures that feel, but it does feel like it almost came with a different design philosophy than a lot of other CIG ships. Because if you look at how many, I mean, absolutely,
it was the first big ship they ever did that wasn't a fighter. So that's how old it is.
6-7 packs to get everything manned up and whatnot. I mean, that's a Polaris, right?
Yeah.
To achieve effectively what you can achieve with 2 Eclipse ordnance-wise, your payload-wise.
Yeah, I think if they went back over it now, they'd probably give it just 2 turrets instead of 5, and they'd have bigger guns. I think that's just almost a no-brainer at this point. But yeah. All right. Yeah. Last but not least, the Perseus. Good luck. Because I don't think you're going to change my mind.
Well, the Perseus is, the more I think about it, the more I really appreciate it. And it's very similar reason than the Sentinel. Is what the Perseus is an indication that these ships are not designed to operate in isolation. When you start getting to the size of corvette, large, this sort of stuff, just subcaps, I think they call them, just under capitals. Because yes, against a group of dedicated fighters who are coordinated and know what they're doing, the Perseus is going to suffer. Let's just get that out of the way. The problem is that the turrets turn too slowly to be able to track fighters effectively. That's what we have in the fluff. However, go back to what I said about the delivery of fighters to a certain location. This thing is going to make a lot of ships worry. It's got torpedoes on board. And actually, you don't need to get nose on with stuff. Looking at the arcs of the top and bottom turrets, it's going to circle its opponent, and it's going to keep those weapon arcs open permanently and absolutely hammer them with 4 size 7 guns, I think, And they've said something about there's going to be interesting things that we can do with the ammo as well. We can almost change the nature of the ammo. Not sure what that means yet. But I really, really like this. I think this, with a couple of light fighters at a jump gate, is really going to cause problems for people that are not dedicated. And lone Perseus is, imagine it almost like the turpits. If you put that in and amongst your opponent's supply lines, you're just going to cause havoc. This thing is going to rip through Starfarers. It's going to tear through Crucibles, Vulcans. They're all going to fall to it in very, very short order. I think a good Perseus crew is going to do some serious damage. And of course, anything that attacks heads on, so you take the Aries or the, anything that has a fixed front gun, that bearing change, not being able to turn turrets quickly, doesn't matter because it's steady, because it's pointing at you. So you are now, it's either going to slow down to the point where it's jinking around, at which point your rear turret is going to have a lot more better time targeting it, or it's going to come straight in for a couple of seconds, in which case it's taking God knows how many size 7 rounds to the face. And it talks about having a lot of armor as well. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I like the Perseus. For the money that you would spend on it, it's not something that I can justify buying myself. When you look at what sits around it for that bracket.
ESE, your thoughts?
Did I convince you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have not convinced them yet.
No.
So my view of Perseus is fairly similar to Execute's. I think we've had a conversation on the side about it. Now, that being said, there's nothing. Every point you made, Drinkers, makes perfect sense. There's nothing that I would disagree with, and you definitely spin a very romantic tale of its role in the verse. That being said, the only way that I would pick up this ship is along the similar thought process of what I said about the Javelin. If your org is sitting on 5 Javelins, count your org members, the time zones and when they can play. And if the math doesn't work, melt that Javelin and put it into a variety of fleet support ships, and this would be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it I don't want to call it a good ship because I don't necessarily think that's the right word for it. I guess I would call it, does it have value? Yes. But bottom line, is it worth the money? I know we're not comparing cash right now, but especially if they raise the price this sale, it just isn't worth bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Is it a good?
Absolutely. Sorry, go on.
Is it a good ship? Yes. Is it a good value ship? Hell no. No way.
Absolutely not.
I almost blame myself when I was on SC Leaks for hyping this ship. I think it is a great ship for what it does. Fairly small crew size. I actually said to you guys earlier tonight, I think the weakness of this ship is like the movie Signs, where the aliens invade and then they realize their weakness is water. Fighter's the most common ship in the game. Its weakness is fighters, Yes, there are certain fighters like the Aries that will be susceptible to it, and I totally agree with that. I still think the ship itself is brilliant. It's so overpriced. When you can, for $25 to $75, get a Polaris that's double the size.
Yeah. And I think, again, stepping away from the price and into the tactics, it is going to be one of those ships that it's going to have when it's in a situation where it can excel, it's going to excel and cause horrendous levels of damage. When you catch it out, it's going to die and die horribly. But what I do like about this is, any situation where your opponent says, well, I can counter that with a hammerhead, throw the Perseus into the mix. If you want to fully crew it, it's 4 crew. You've got your pilot, both turret gunners, and the person on the remote turret aft if you've not got a blade in. For that, for against a almost fully manned hammerhead, you get 2 Perseus, which is just going to tear the hammerhead to pieces. So you've got that kind of economy of bodies as well, economy of human players. If you're going to go with entirely human crew. So, yeah, it's one of those things, like you say, wallet stays firmly closed when talking about the Perseus, but in terms of in-game, I can see this is going to be one of the first ships I think that I work up to buying. Really like it.
I've removed the single fighter list because I can't recommend any of those at all. The Perseus, as you've kind of heard, excuse me, my asthma's given me a heart attack. Can't recommend the Perseus, so that's off the list. The Vulcan, I just think the Crucible's just such a better value proposition, but I can definitely see it's got more value after the discussions today than I initially realized. Excuse me. And the Vanguard Sentinel, I think that's another ship that I'm going to have to see in the interest of time, especially with the things I've been seeing in just the last 48 hours with the Redeemer. It's even looking like some of the modules, I'm not saying they will, but they are copied the modules from the Vanguard and they're inside the Redeemer. That would be sick if they used the same modules. So we'll have to wait and see. But they're the only three from that list that I would remove. All the others, I think, are very good value propositions to buy right now. I know a lot of them are still in concept, so we'll have to kind of wait, see where that goes. I need to get another drink. This is the longest episode of Inforunners we've ever done, and I'm running out of liquid very quickly. And that's why I'm coughing a lot more. All right, so I think I'll thank you guys for joining us today. Let us know in the comments below your thoughts on the ships that we've talked about today. If you've been watching Inforunners before, you probably were not by surprise that they were going to change my mind very much, because I've talked about these ships to the cows come home. But they did definitely inform me on some things that I was not expecting to see, and also look forward to some other future upcoming episodes with more people as we've got all these discussions going, especially with the professional series that's really kicked off recently. All right, drinkers, where can people find you?
You can find me over exclusively on YouTube at the moment, Drinkers with Gaming Problems. I get content up there as much as I can at the minute, which isn't a lot, but there's lots of kind of military and naval perspective stuff, so I'd look forward to see you across there.
Cool. All right, if you are interested in leaving a comment below, remember #Jagan in the comments for your chance to win an F7A upgrade and Super Hornet. If you like the content we do here, feel free to subscribe. If you really like what we do, follow us on Patreon, all that type of stuff. Let us know your thoughts below in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that type of thing. All right, he's been Drinkers with Gaming Problems. He's been ESE, and I've been Execute. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Say goodbye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Cheers, guys. Catch you later.